Some breaking news right now. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life while he was behind bars here in New York City. Epstein was facing trafficking charges and...
What if one of America's most carefully packaged family men wasn't just brushing up against Jeffrey Epstein's world, but operating inside the same protected ecosystem that kept powerful predators untouchable for decades? That is the question hanging over Steve Harvey right now as new Epstein files hit Washington in November 2025. And a familiar pattern of names, timelines, and cozy friendships starts to overlap in ways that are getting harder to explain away. We are not talking about a random mention in a stray email. We are looking at a web where Epstein's emails, Diddy's conviction, and Harvey's own household drama all seem to converge around the same years, the same circles, and the same chilling silence.
I think it reinforced the research that I did on my book that Jeffrey Epstein has always viewed himself as smarter than everybody else, and he also has collected people all along the way, particularly over the 2 decades through his trafficking. And that was always to get secrets and bits of information about individuals that he could pass to other people he trafficked in.
In mid-November 2025, lawmakers in the U.S. House released more than 20,000 pages from the so-called Epstein files, covering correspondence from roughly 2008 to 2019. Those documents include emails where Epstein bragged that Donald Trump knew about the girls and referenced long hours spent at his homes, with witnesses like House staff confirming how much the former president saw. At the same time, Democrats and Republicans went back and forth over who was cherry-picking which emails, each side accusing the other of trying to shape the story. That fight might sound political on the surface, but for us, it matters because it proves one thing. These files are not just gossip. They are now part of a public record that is pulling more names and more relationships into the light. Now layer that over what happened with Sean Diddy Combs. In 2024, after years of rumors and civil cases, federal prosecutors brought a sweeping case against him, built on testimony from ex-partners and former insiders, describing what they called freak-offs that stretched back to at least 2008. By mid-2025, a New York jury had cleared him on the most severe charges, like racketeering conspiracy and trafficking by force, but still found him guilty on 2 counts of transporting people across state and international lines for paid intimate encounters. Each count carries up to 10 years, and he is currently serving a 50-month sentence at a federal facility in New Jersey, with a new projected release date in June 2028 after a recent adjustment to his status behind bars. While his legal team plans to appeal, and he continues to deny wrongdoing, the testimony about prolonged, choreographed encounters, filmed and used as leverage, has already destroyed the wholesome mogul image he once sold.
Her, doesn't it? She probably wants to get out early. So I think that we have more digging to do. I think the DOJ transparency effort here is the right thing, but the reason it's on a Friday, Will, is I think there are no smoking guns. There's other places we have to look.
Well, Buck, you appropriately...
This is where Steve Harvey enters the frame. While Epstein was sending strange, arrogant emails about presidents and power brokers, and Diddy was allegedly building an entire shadow operation to manage his private appetites, Harvey was becoming daytime television's moral referee. He was the guy lecturing callers and guests about standards, responsibility, and how women should demand better from men. Yet, behind that image, his own ex-wife Mary was accusing him in filings and online videos of psychological torment, financial games, and what she dramatically described as soul destruction, a term she used for a mix of alleged torture, deprivation, and mental breaking. A $60 million suit she filed in 2017, claiming everything from conspiracy against rights to emotional torment, would ultimately be thrown out on jurisdictional grounds, with a judge saying it belonged in Texas, and Harvey's team calling it frivolous and completely false. But the accusations themselves never really vanished. They just stopped being discussed on camera.
He took my Winton. Took my Winton from me. He turned my son against me.
By 2019, all of these threads were moving at once. Epstein was still alive and emailing journalists and associates. Diddy was still on top of music and nightlife, running brands and throwing carefully curated events. And Steve Harvey's household was becoming a tabloid storyline because of his stepdaughter, Lori. That summer, Lori Harvey, then in her early 20s, was photographed repeatedly with Diddy, who was in his late 40s, traveling in Cabo, strolling in New York in matching outfits, and sitting at lunch in Italy with Lori's mother and Steve himself at the table. Photos from August showed Lori with her arm around Diddy while dining with her parents, a visual that instantly turned a rumored romance into a public talking point. Fans flooded comment sections asking why a man who built a career as America's dad was okay with his stepdaughter being romantically linked to a man almost 3 decades older, especially a man already shadowed by long-running whispers of controlling behavior and strange private gatherings.
Her mother is 54 years old. Her mother is 5 years older.
Back then, the coverage treated it like standard celebrity intrigue. TMZ-style outlets described it as a fun fling. Sources close to Diddy insisted he was healing after Kim Porter's sudden passing in late 2018. And insiders claimed Lori had been a longtime family friend who happened to bring him comfort. Some reports even stressed that Lori had always denied dating Diddy's son Justin, despite years of speculation that she had been linked to him first. But today, in late 2025, that same 2019 timeline looks very different when we put it up against what jurors heard in federal court. We now know that by that period, Diddy's alleged pattern of flying partners and hired participants to different cities for marathon encounters was already well established behind the scenes. We know witnesses described him using recordings as leverage and relying on a tight circle of staff to keep everything quiet and under control. Suddenly, those cozy pictures from Italy and Mexico are not just cute couple shots. They feel like snapshots from the outer ring of a much darker orbit.
2 is 49.
Diddy is 49 years old.
Oh, man!
That is a 27-year.
Meanwhile, the Epstein emails released this year add another layer of context to how the ultra-wealthy thought about risk. Epstein's messages, many written in all lowercase with bizarre punctuation quirks like him-he, show a man so confident in his protection that he did not even bother to clean up obvious errors while discussing presidents, accusers, and sensitive situations. In one exchange from early 2019, he wrote that Trump knew about the girls and referenced staff testimony backing up how often the future president was around. In another, he was strategizing with writer Michael Wolff about how to use Trump's public statements for leverage or currency. The tone is casual, dismissive, almost bored. It is the voice of someone who assumes that nothing he types will ever cost him his freedom or his reputation in a serious way. That attitude is important because we have to ask whether a similar culture of protection has been operating around men like Diddy and Steve Harvey. When Lori Harvey was photographed with Diddy and then seen again with her parents in Europe, fans turned to Steve's public feeds expecting some kind of comment. Instead, what they got was silence. Articles at the time pointed out that while Lori and Diddy were trending, Steve was promoting his Sand and Soul Festival in Cancun and posting about his anniversary trips with Marjorie. Commenters were asking, "Where is Uncle Steve?" and openly wondering how a man who wrote a best-selling book on relationships could say nothing while his stepdaughter was rumored to be involved with a man nearly her father's age, who had already buried one partner and was known for extravagant late-night environments.
So I just keep going through. But then I'll tell you something too, haters motivate me. Because when they talking about me, that means I'm doing something.
We cannot ignore that this silence came from someone whose own private life was already being dragged through courts and blogs. Mary Harvey had gone on camera claiming that the division of assets from their Texas divorce was never handled the way a judge promised, that she had been left financially and emotionally destroyed, and that Steve had used his influence to push her to the margins while he rebranded himself as a self-help guru. His attorneys hit back hard, saying they would vigorously defend and counterclaim, and over time, judges dismissed her big case. Still, those allegations of psychological torment and manipulation now sit uncomfortably next to the vision of a stepfather who reportedly saw Lori sit across from Diddy at lunch and chose to keep every reaction behind closed doors. Insiders familiar with Hollywood's protection game say that what looks like silence from the outside often reflects a deliberate strategy agreed on by managers, lawyers, and network executives. The logic is simple. Any comment from Steve acknowledging concern about Diddy would immediately raise follow-up questions about what he had seen backstage at joint events, trips, or parties stretching back years. Harvey and Diddy have moved in overlapping circles since at least the mid-2000s, appearing at the same celebrations, award shows, and industry gatherings. If Harvey publicly disapproved in 2019, reporters could have asked whether he was only now uncomfortable because paparazzi caught it on camera, or whether he had ignored whispers circulating for years inside those rooms.
Now, I'm a Christian, but I ain't that good a Christian.
While Congress now pushes the Department of Justice to release all remaining Epstein-related files under a proposed Transparency Act, and while Diddy sits inside FCI Fort Dix with more than 70 civil lawsuits still hanging over his businesses and personal fortune, we are left looking at Steve Harvey's choices with new eyes. On one side, there is the talk show host telling women to know their worth and men to step up. On the other, there is the ex-wife who says she was emotionally destroyed. The stepdaughter who stepped into a rumored relationship with a man later convicted of serious misconduct involving paid encounters and coercive dynamics. And a long, unbroken stretch of strategic quiet from a man who comments on almost everything else. The pattern that keeps emerging in these stories is not just individual wrongdoing, but networks of mutual protection. Epstein talked casually about using damaging knowledge as leverage. Diddy's accusers describe recordings and financial control used to keep people close and quiet. Steve Harvey, according to legal filings and interviews, is a man who fought to control the narrative of his divorces and present himself as a redeemed, wiser figure. When we place all of that alongside the 2019 images of Lori and Diddy at family lunches and the 2025 reality of fresh Epstein emails and a convicted mogul in a federal facility, the question starts to shift. It is no longer simply whether Steve Harvey brushed up against these worlds by accident. It becomes how far into that system he went, how much he understood about the men at his table, and how many decisions were made behind closed doors to make sure the rest of us never saw the full picture.
Hey, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Well, Steve's learning that the hard way tonight. Steve's ex-wife, Mary Harvey, is angry, and she's going public.
We have been told for years that Steve Harvey's kingdom lived on a separate shelf from the nightmare names of Jeffrey Epstein and Sean Diddy Combs. As if daytime talk shows, family game nights, and motivational tours existed in a different universe from leaked emails, federal charges, and sealed affidavits. But when we look at the paper trail, that illusion cracks. The dismissal of Mary Harvey's $60 million lawsuit in 2017 was not a judge declaring Steve innocent. It was a judge in LA saying the case belonged back in Texas, where the divorce was finalized in 2005, punting it away on a technical rule, while the accusations of soul destruction, deprivation, and psychological torment just hung in the air. At almost the same time, Epstein's emails from 2008 to 2019 show a man casually typing that Trump knew about the girls, dropping references to House staff testimony, and speaking about leverage like it was a normal part of business, not a warning siren. And in that same window, Diddy was building the pattern that would lead to his 2025 conviction and that 50-month sentence in a New Jersey federal facility. A pattern that prosecutors say involved travel, recruiting, and carefully managed private encounters stretching back more than a decade. That is where the real story starts to come into focus. Not in a single photo or viral clip, but in a system of paperwork. On one side, we have Epstein's 20,000-plus pages of correspondence released in November 2025, where his typos and lowercase rambling still manage to outline a clear model of influence and pressure. On another, we have a Los Angeles court wiping Mary Harvey's case off the docket because jurisdiction was wrong, even as she stood on YouTube saying a judge had promised a fair division of assets that never came, and that she wanted Steve behind bars for what she called years of emotional destruction. And hovering over all of it is Diddy's timeline. Civil suits, whispered settlements, and eventually a federal jury that cleared him of the most explosive charges, but still found him guilty of transporting people across borders for paid encounters. Enough for the Bureau of Prisons to update his projected release date to June 2028, after internal discipline over what officials described as repeated substance violations.
Anything wrong that are suddenly going to be in the spotlight, and that's just a kind of a strange scenario that we're finding ourselves in. As to why they released it, I mean, look, the grand jury materials, I think, were kind of properly protected by a judge who said, no, it's not enough just that the world's really excited and wants to know kind of scurrilous details about Epstein and Maxwell. The judge, I think, properly respected the statutory protections we have.
When we step back, we start to see what some media lawyers call structured silence. Harvey's empire, estimated at around $200 million by multiple business outlets in the late 2010s, did not grow in a vacuum. It grew while serious accusations were being deflected, delayed, or dismissed. It grew while Mary's claims were rerouted to Texas and then swallowed up in a maze of filings that never made it to a full public trial. It grew while his image was polished by PR teams at major networks, landing him a lucrative 2017 book deal and a high-profile move to Fox, even as court documents from that same year listed words like torture, conspiracy against rights, and kidnapping in connection with his name. We are not talking about a random gossip blog. We are talking about filings obtained by mainstream outlets and statements from his own attorney calling the case meritless and promising to vigorously defend and counterclaim. Structured silence also shows up in how Diddy's current prison situation has been managed. Officially, reports from inside FCI Fort Dix talk about sanctions for substance-related rule violations, a story that presents his delayed privileges as a simple case of a celebrity inmate not adjusting to life on the inside. But insiders familiar with federal facilities say those violations can also be a convenient catch-all when authorities are dealing with a high-profile figure whose presence carries security risks and potential embarrassment. According to one former corrections consultant, a star inmate who knows too much about executives, politicians, and decades of private gatherings is never just another number on the roster. He is a walking archive. When that inmate also has more than 70 civil suits still pending against him, some of them alleging coercive encounters recorded on video, the stakes of every sanction, every hearing, every early release review climb higher. Then we go back to Epstein's emails and see the same mentality in a cruder form. He writes in 2019 that Trump knew about the girls, notes that a Mar-a-Lago employee once worked for him, references the houseman's testimony, and suggests that he could be the one able to take him down. He offers to provide images of Trump with young women in bikinis in his kitchen to a New York Times reporter, a batch of material that the journalist later said never actually arrived. We watch him talk to Michael Wolff about using his knowledge for leverage, all of it typed in that weird, sloppy lowercase with stray punctuation marks, as if the consequences simply did not exist. That is the mindset of a man who believes the system will always bend around him. So where does Steve Harvey fit in? This is where we have to talk about what some industry veterans quietly call a protection racket for reputations. Epstein's circle included people who did not directly take part in his worst actions, but allegedly helped by keeping quiet, managing introductions, or smoothing over problems when victims started to talk. Diddy's world, according to former staffers who later sued, relied on managers, security, and aides who arranged travel, prepared locations, and handled payouts or non-disclosure agreements when nights got out of control. And Steve Harvey, during those same years, was not just telling jokes. He was signing long-term deals that made him the face of family values, while his ex-wife was on camera saying he owed her tens of millions and had ruined her life.
You know, he's a man with the power. He's in 60 markets. He's written these books. You know, he's socially connected with the programs and Disney and all these type people.
Look at 2017 in particular. That year, Mary's suit hits headlines with explosive accusations, including the phrase soul destruction, defined in her filing as a combination of deprivation and mental breaking. The case is quickly pushed aside on a jurisdiction question, never tested in a full trial. At the same time, Harvey is inking a big agreement with a major publisher to extend the success of his relationship advice brand and moving his talk show deal into a new partnership, eventually leading to Steve on a new network. Corporate America was betting on him as a safe pair of hands, a warm, fatherly presence who could sell books, ad slots, and festival tickets. We have to ask, did those companies look away from the filings? Or did they decide that as long as the judge did not proceed, the accusations simply did not matter?
And my wish to you is success in millions and billions.
We also cannot ignore how skillfully Harvey has managed his brand through crisis. When the Miss Universe fiasco hit in 2015, he turned a global embarrassment into a running joke and a renewed booking spree. When internal reports suggested declining ratings on one network, he pivoted to another platform and expanded his festival and radio footprint. That is not just charm, that is strategy. If a man can absorb that many public hits and still climb, imagine how carefully he would respond if questions about Epstein's leaks or Diddy's conviction ever got close to his front door. Every silence, every no comment, every decision to focus on travel vlogs and motivational clips instead of hard questions becomes part of a pattern. So as we stand in late 2025, with Epstein's bizarre emails being poured over in Washington, Diddy marking time inside FCI Fort Dix, and Mary Harvey's old accusations resurfacing in viral clips on social media, one thing is clear. Steve Harvey's story is not just about a smiling host whose name happened to bump up against darker headlines. We are looking at a man whose fortune, estimated in the hundreds of millions, rose during the exact years when the system was quietly teaching him how power really works. Steve Harvey did not just end up near Epstein's world by accident. He did not stay quiet about Diddy by coincidence. And he did not build an empire on family values, while his ex-wife talked about torture and soul destruction because the system failed him. He built that fortune because the system worked exactly the way it was designed, protecting those who play along. So now we have to ask, not whether Steve Harvey knew what was happening behind those closed doors, but who is still running interference for him today, what they are getting in return, and how many more secrets are waiting to come out when the next batch of files drops. What do you think really ties these names together? And when the truth finally hits daylight, whose side are you going to believe? Until then, we will be watching every move. So stay sharp, stay curious, and we will see you in the next one.